Hey, hello everyone and welcome in a new video, in a new Kubernetes video. And we will discover today two really important things inside the Kubernetes. One is ConfigMap and another is secret. And this is exactly the same thing, but of course secret is here to store secret, so encrypted data. We will discover that we need to take care about secret. This is not totally secret for everyone. So don't hesitate to subscribe to the channel to not miss the next video. You can like it and comment this one to support me, of course. And you can check the homepage about this channel to discover some other videos. So let's go for ConfigMap and secret. So what is it? ConfigMap and secret is about the global things about configuration. When you want to put an application inside your Kubernetes cluster, you will use ConfigMap and secret to store some element like key value for to set some environment variables, or if you want to push directly a file with some element, some configuration element, you can put it as a config map or as secret. Secret is of course when you want to store some sensitive data like password or stuff like that. So a config map or a secret is just a kind of volume. So this is really important to know that. That means that you can mount config map and secret inside a pod. So this is basically the first thing that you need to know. The second thing is it works like key value store. So you need to have a key. So the key sometimes can be an environment variable key, or the key could be and can be just a file name like nginx.conf or stuff like that. And of course, in the value, you can store a lot of things. So maybe flat things like just a value, a single value, or maybe more complicated things like, for example, JSON. And you can store one or many keys inside your config map or inside your secret. So this is important to know that. Take care about the secrets, because in secrets you store, of course, some sensitive data, but to store it, you need to encode this data with base 64 to ensure to store it inside your etcd cluster at the end through your API server. And sometimes, and you need to take care about this part, you need to know if your etcd is encrypted or not. We will see that later with Kubernetes hardware or stuff like that. But encrypted etcd is really important, especially for secret, config map, and some other stuff. Because if you store in base 64 your secret, but if your data is not encrypted inside etcd, if someone go through your server, your master, or your worker, but your masters, maybe this person can go inside your etcd and can pull some secrets. And of course, after that, this is a real problem for security guys. Some other stuff, yes, we already said that, so it's okay. You can store some not only password for sensitive data, like a token, you can store it inside your cluster, or certificate. We will see that in the second part of this video. Some similarities, of course, like I said, config map and secret. This is this is a kind of volume. You can mount it inside your pod, and the schema and the structure about config map and secret is exactly, or close to be exactly the same structure. Of course, like I said, you can store data inside it with key value, and key can be just a file named or a simple key. And when you mount it inside your pod, you can mount it directly as a file or as a directory. You can mount an entire directory, and also you can mount it, of course, as an environment variable or as a configuration files. Like I said, this is close to be the same structure about the manifest, and yes, that's it for that. And yes, really important thing, the last one here, because if you have a pod and you mount a secret or a config map inside it, imagine your pod is running and you want to change the configuration inside the config map or the secret. You can edit it directly, but if you don't and if you want to restart the pod, you haven't the latest version about the configuration, so you need to restart the pod to pull again the new version about the config map or secret inside your pod. So let's go. So I have yes, our Kubernetes cluster with key 0s where we already work on it, and I connect on it. Okay. I can create a little directory, like demo directory. I can go inside it. If I just want to create our first config map, what we can do, we can create it entirely inside one line, like kubectl create. So I can check before kubectl get and cm or config map like that, or CM. This is exactly the same thing. This is just an alias, of course, and we can use kubectl create. What we want to create? We want to create a config map, and the name of the config map. Right now, my config map, for example, my config map like that. And now I can say from literal. So we have many choice to set and to create config map. In one line, we can use easily the from literal like that, and after that equal, and we can just one t, sorry, and after that a key and a value, for example a log level. You can, or an environment, you can set it like that, app env equal to production like that. And if you have a second secret, you can pass it directly inside the same one line, like from literal again, and we want to set the log level and equal to info, for example. Like that, we created a config map. If I go again on kubectl get config map, sorry, and we can of course check the config map with the name and -o YAML, and at the end, what do we have inside it? Of course, we can bypass all metadatas, and really important thing, config map and secret are dedicated to a specific namespace. If you have many namespace, you can set the same config map with the same name inside each namespace. This is not a problem. This is what we can say, it's a namespaced component. And inside the config map, we have a data key, and inside the data part, we have the app, so the key, and the value production. And the same thing with the log info element. So this is important. Now we can do the same thing with Nginx, with a file like nginx.conf. I can check because I have some example here. And if I go here, yes, like that. like that, I can use here and create a new file. For example, nginx.conf, nginx.conf like that. I have a file, not inside Kubernetes. I have just a basic an example, a sample file like that. Okay, and now I want to push it as a config map. I can use again kubectl create config map or cm, and the name of the config map. Now I can use what I use nginx dash config like that, and now I can use not from literal but from file or file equal to nginx dot conf like that. Okay, and that means when you do that, the key about our config map and our dedicated part to the data dedicated part, we will have the key named nginx.conf, and the value will be the content about our file. So let's go kubectl get config map again, and if I use the nginx config like that and -o YAML, of course, now we have a data part with nginx.conf key, and inside it, this is a global block, and you don't need to take care about which format do we have inside it. So it can be a JSON, but it could be a YAML or stuff like that. You can store it directly like that. And of course, in one line, it's really, really easy to do that. So we have the kind config map, we have the API version, this is the V1, so this is the legacy side, as we already see, we already saw, and we have inside data, we have our key. So it's okay for that. Now, yes, so we already saw that. And to use it, now we can use it, as I said, with multiple choice to do that. You can use it as directly as a volume. You can use it through the environment variable settings like that. For example, here you can see that we have a container. So this is in the block, in the container block about the pod. So if you have multiple containers, you can mount or not mount the config map inside it. And after that, inside it, we have env block, and in the env block, we want to set some environment variable. The name of the environment variable is app-env, for example, or app_env. Yes, and we want to set this value, and we can, for example, set it like TT or Toto or stuff like that here. But we want to mount and to just set the app_env key with environment variable with the value from the config map keyref, and if it was a secret, that could be secret keyref, but here it's a config map, so we set config map keyref secret, the name of the config map, so my config map, this is like we had previously, and the key that we want to use inside our config map, because as we saw, as we seen, we check that we can have multiple key inside the config map. So here we just want to use one key, and for the second key, of course, we need to do the same thing inside it. Okay, we can mount directly the entire config map. For example, as we see here inside, so maybe we have some example here. I can check. So here we mount, so no, this is not exactly the same thing, but we can mount multiple key, and if we check the config map like that, this one, yes, we have app and log level, but imagine that you have multiple and many keys inside your config map, and you want to mount all these keys. And how to do that? You can use directly the env from, and with the env from you can use ConfigMap ref, and that could be a secret too, and the name of the config map, and that's it. And all keys are mounted inside your pod and your container, of course, inside your pod with whole key. Okay. How you can mount also another use case? You can mount it with volume. For example, when you want to mount a file or a directory, you can use this kind of thing. You can use here the name of a volume, so config volume, for example, the config map here, and the config map and the entire config map will be mounted. And if you have, for example, multiple file inside your config map, all file will be mounted inside the volume mount, like here, and we use the same name as we have inside volumes, so config volume here, and the mount path for all files that we have inside the config map in this case. So inside app config directory, we will have many files if we have many files inside our config map. So let's go for an example, I think. Maybe just another example, and after that we will make a little demo. Another example here. Not exactly the same thing, but imagine that we have multiple files inside the same config map, but you don't want to mount all files and to put all files inside your volume mount. And how to do that? You declare, you set here your volumes. So you have, for example, here config volume again, the config map. So you put it also like the previous example. And after that, if you add items like that, you can add a list of keys that you want to use inside your pod. And for example, here we want to use the key named config file. So you can see this is not a key with the name of a file, but that could be the name of the file if you want. And after that, with that, you put the content about the key config file that you have inside your config map inside a path. And here our path is just a file name, custom-config.init. And so the content about config file key will be put inside the custom config init and will be mounted inside our volume mount where we use config volume like that, and inside the mount path /app/config directory. So that means that we will have the custom-config.init file inside /app/config directory with the content about the config map and the key config file. So that's it for this part. We will see secrets just later, and now it's time for the demo, and we can just begin with a simple example, I think. So we want to set. So we set here the nginx.conf file, and basically we use the kubectl create config map, the name about our config map, and from file as we did just before. If you want, you can of course use this kind of tricks. So you can use kubectl apply like here -f and a space and dash again. And after that, end of file, the beginning about the end of file, the end of the end of file, and the content about the entire manifest. And with that, you can create directly the config map with the key inside it, nginx.conf, and the entire content of the file. And how to mount this file? Now we can use again what we saw previously. So let's go. We can create, what is it? It's a pod? Yes, it's a pod. We can create a pod like that. And with this content, we have the API version, the pod, the metadata about, so the name of the pod, and the specifications about this pod. So the containers part, we want to have an Nginx in the latest version. And we want to mount inside it a config map. So the name about this volume is Nginx config volume. The config map is just composed by some elements. So the name of the config map is Nginx-config, and we want to use inside this config map the key named nginx.conf, and we want to generate inside our path a file named nginx.conf. If you want, you can remap it in this scenario, but we don't want to do that. And after that, inside our container, we want to use volume mount to mount the volume named nginx config -volume like that. And we want and we set the mount path with /etc nginx and nginx.conf to overwrite the classical nginx.conf. And you can specify the key here, but it's not necessary here, I think. Okay, so if I put it like that, kubectl apply -f and the pod, okay, kubectl get pod like that. I can use -o wide, and now after few seconds, we would have normally a new pod, yes, up and running with a dedicated IP. And if I use a curl on that, we can see hello from the custom Nginx configuration. If I use a cat on the nginx.conf, of course we have it here with a return with 200 and the content about hello with hello from custom Nginx configuration. So it's okay for that. Now we can use another example. For example, here we can just change the configuration about our Nginx, and this is not yes, this is a little tricks, I think. Yes, like that. Okay, perfect. So we can define a first config map like that, and this config map is named nginx-env-config, and we can set inside it the server name, the listen port, so the port 80 in this case, and the location about the content that we want to serve through the Nginx. So to do that, let's go config kubectl apply, and I can check kubectl config map, and we have of course this config map here, and I can check the content with -o YAML. You can use of course the describe on the config map, but it's not really useful in this case. And in the data part, we have listen with the port 80, root location here with the value of a directory, and the server name. Okay, so the purpose at the end is to reconfigure our Nginx. And in the second config map, we want to set and to define a content that we want to serve through our Nginx, like index.html file. And to do that, we create another config map named nginx-content with the key index content and the content hello xavkey. Okay, so now we need to mount all things inside our this is not the end. We need to create yes, we want to create another config map to use templating things, because we want to reconfigure our Nginx. So now we have some environment variables that we want to mount inside the nginx.conf, and also we have some element inside the content that we want to serve through the nginx.html. So the first thing is to create a template to reconfigure the Nginx to use environment variable with the listen port and also the server name and the root location. Okay, so this is another config map. Now we have 3 config maps that we want to mount inside our pod. And how to do that? It's really simple, but with some tricks inside it. Take care about it. We want to use kubectl apply again, but inside so we have a pod named nginx env.-pod, and inside it we have a containers named nginx. So maybe I can just explore like that. And inside it we have a container named nginx with the latest version about nginx. And the first thing that we want to do is to mount all environment variables that we have inside the config map named nginx-env-config. So this is the port, the root thing, the root location, and the host, if I remember well. And we want to mount what? The config map and the entire config map. So that just with env from. So this is not just env, this is env from to set the entire key that we have inside keys that we have inside the config map. So that the first thing is inside with that inside our container we will have this this environment variable. So after that, what we want to do, we want to mount a specific template file to reconfigure the configuration, because we have some variables inside the container. So now we want to use this variable to reconfigure the nginx.conf. So to do that, we need to use the template file about our nginx.conf. So we need to use a volume. So we just set the name of the volume. We want to mount inside this volume the nginx template config based on config map like that, and just to use only one items inside here based on the key named nginx.conf.template, and we will use it with path nginx.conf.template. Okay, and to use it, we need to use inside the container the volume mount, and of course we use the nginx config volume as the volume mount, in the volume mount as a volume, and after that we want to mount it inside /etc nginx template nginx template conf template. Okay, and we use the same subpath here, and after that what we do, we want to not use directly the nginx. So we want to first reconfigure all things that we want to have, so the content about the index.html, and also we want to reconfigure our nginx. So to do that, and we need to mount another environment variable. So this is the index content, another environment variable based on the configuration file, on the config map, sorry, nginx-content, and we set and we use inside this config map the index_content. Let's go now to put all together. The first thing that we want to do is to run a bin shell with -c for command, and we pass. The first thing that we want to do is to use our template. How to use a template based on environment variables with Linux globally. You can use here your template, put the template to env subst function. So this is in all Linux like that. If you check so if you check here env subst like that, this is a dedicated command line to substitute environment variable inside a file. Okay, and we want to use this template file. We put it to env subst for substitution, and we want as a result to set the file inside the /etc nginx.conf. Okay, so this is the first part about our one line, and after that, if it's okay with our double character here, we want to make an echo about the environment variables like here index content, to set the content about our index.html file. And to do that, we use again another environment variable that we push with this part, with from part, and we use the root location / index.html. So with that, we put index content inside the index.html file. And at the end, what we want to do, we want to exec nginx, of course, as a daemon. Or not daemon, sorry. And the container port is set to 80. And that's it with that. So let's go. And now we have a new pod. So the pod is here. I can just check with wide, like that. We have the pod. We can make a curl on that. And it's okay. We have our content, hello Xavkey. And if we check the content about the nginx.conf, etc., so we can check now with kubectl exec-ti, and we want to go inside the pod name nginx of pod, and with a bash, if we have a bash inside it, I don't know, yes, and we can cat, for example, /etc nginx.conf, and we have inside it we have the same thing that we have inside the template, but with substitution about environment variables. Like here the 80, like here server name, and the root path here. And the content, of course, is in the USR, if I remember well, USR share nginx things HTML and the index.html here. And also that is the result about this CLI, the echo about the index content that we just pull from the environment variable. Okay, so let's go maybe for another example. Which one? Yes, with another example. And what we can do, we can go here. Yes. So we did this one, and now for secret, how it works. Secret, maybe we can check that. We can continue on this part with the slides and secret things. So secret works exactly like ConfigMap to mount it. So you can use env to set directly each variable one by one. You can use env from to mount the entire environment variable that you have inside a config map, for example. And you can use volume and volume mount to mount all your secret directly. But especially for secret, you can have another thing that you can set inside your secret. You can set, for example, the type, and the type can be an opaque, like that. So this is just when you have just a secret, but a basical secret. You can set a service account token. So we will see that later with airbag and stuff like that. You can set the Docker CFG or the Docker config JSON to set the secret about Docker registry. You can set the basic auth inside it, SSH auth for the especially for SSH authentication with SSH public key, for example. And you can set here a certificate, a TLS certificate or a token. And this is important because for each kind of secret, you have a dedicated structure about a secret. For opaque, it's open and it's free to set all keys that you want to set. But for Docker JSON, you need to set some specific thing like that. For example, you can see here we have a generic. Generic is like an opaque secret. So for example, if you want to set it like that, we can go kubectl set create secret, and we can set it exactly like our previous things about ConfigMap. So you can use secret, we can set a secret with the type generic, so this is like opaque, and my secret like that, and from literal or from file, from literal like that. And I want to set username equal Xavki, and from literal again we can set here password, and I can use here 1 2 3 4 6 error base, where is it, this keyboard. Oh, it's okay. Now I can check the list of secrets. Okay, so I have the secret, my secret, like that. So I can check with -o YAML. And as I said previously, each secret, each value of each secret is are stored as base 64, like that or like that. You can see the equal generally is for a base 64 encoded value. And if you want to go to check the content of this file, you need to decrypt the value. And to do that, how you can do that? You can use kubectl get secret, your secret -o, and you can use the JSON path like that. And in the JSON path, you need to use curly bracket like that, and dot data. So we want to just display the content about the data block. Okay, and with that, now you are inside like a JSON. You can use, for example, password here, and you have now the content about the password key, and you can use the base 64-d for decode, and you have the content about your password here. If you have, take care, if you have here, for example, a file name or stuff like that, you need to use the anti-slash like that, for example, for txt, you can use .txt like that. Okay, for example, if it's a file. Okay, some other stuff. Of course, you can use from file like that too. And for another kind of secret, for example, for the Docker registry secret, you can set it like that. Kubectl create secret, the kind of secret, Docker registry, the name of the secret, and the dedicated structure about your secret. For example, for Docker registry, this is Docker. So we can do that. So kubectl create secret, and Docker registry, if I remember well, Docker registry, like that, and the name of so my registry, for example, or Docker Hub, or etc. And now we need to take care about the structure. So we have Docker server, username, password, and email. So Docker dash server. So we can set here myhub.com, for example, and we have the Docker username, so equal to Xavki, and we have password, of course, Docker password like that, and 1 2 3 4 5 6, and -- Docker email, and we can set it to Xavki me.com, like that. And if I put it, now we have a new secret, of course. And this secret, you can see here, the type of the secret is a Docker config JSON type, because we use the Docker registry. So this is not exactly the same name for the type and the usage inside the command line, but it's that. And if you check the content about it, and with -o like that, -o YAML, of course, like that, you have here the content about the JSON. And you can see it's directly a file name for the key and the content, because the structure here is already and is dedicated to store a Docker configuration, but you can just extract the content about it with a JSON path, like that, JSON path again, equal, and we want, of course, to have the data block like that, and inside the data block, and this is, you need to take care about the dot here, and we need to use dot, escape the first dot, and the name Docker config JSON, like that. And with that, you have now the content about the value, and you can decode this one with the base64-d. And now you can see the content here about Docker config JSON with the Docker config JSON schema. So you have the host with the dedicated key is the name about the registry, and for this registry we have the username, we have the password and the email, and the host in a dedicated format. Okay. So we already discovered that. And if you want to push your own secret, you need to encode directly your secret. And to do that, you need to create a base64 content. So for example, my password, like that. And you can use echo-n to be sure to not have a return to the line. And you can encode it with base64 directly without -d, of course. And inside it, we need to create a config map. And in this config map, we need to set some stuff, of course. And we can do it manually. We can use API version and set it to v1, I think. After that, we use a kind, of course, secret with the uppercase. After that, the metadata. So this is only, but you can add label or annotations. So metadata, name, my test, like that, test. And after that, you need to set here the data block, the key, so my key, for example, and the content about our base64. And you need to add the type of your secret. So in our case, this is a basical secret, so we can set to opaque. And with that, we can use apply cn.yml. Now we have our secret, of course. So this is the secret named my test, like that. You can see it's opaque, and we can use the output, the JSON output, JSON path, with curly brackets, data, and inside data we have our my key, and we can add at the end the base64 decode, like that, and you can see that we have our previous password. So it's okay. Some other stuff, maybe that's it for today. It seems to be, yes, we need to use to make a last example on how to mount secret, but this is exactly the same thing that we have inside the previous example, but we just need to replace config map with secret keyref, for example, like that. So we can, yes, we can do it, I think, and we can edit secret too. So I can just have a look inside it. Okay. So what we can do, we can create a secret named and the key index content. We can edit a secret directly. So kubectl get secret like that, and we can edit the secret. No, I need to create a new secret. What I want to do? This is a question. Inside the secret, we need to have the key index content, okay, and the secret name is this one, okay. So I can do that. So kubectl create secret generic, so far opaque, and from literal equal the name about the key and the content. No, the name of the key is this one, and nginx content. So I need to put here nginx content. So this is the name about our secret, and now the key of our secret is nginx content, and after that I can put here, for example, just a little test like that. Okay, so kubectl get secret again. Okay, so now we can drop the previous pod, I think, yes, and replace it by this is exactly the same pod that we used previously, but we just changed the mount here for the content index content to use a secret keyref, not a ConfigMap keyref. Okay, so we can just remove the pod, kubectl get pod, kubectl delete pod nginx of pod like that, and after that I can put the new pod here and kubectl get pod again. So that takes a few seconds. It's up and running. -o wide again to get the IP, and now if I check it, we have just a little test here. And some other example, you can see here we use a config map with multiple key, okay, and sleep. What we did here, not really interesting things, I think. No, this is an example to mount multiple files inside the same directory, so we can do it like that. Kubectl apply, and we create a new config map named hello with the key test1.txt with the content hello1 and another key test2.txt with hello2. Okay, and now what I want to do, I want to create a new pod, and with this new pod I want to mount the entire config map like that, the entire config map. And we want to mount it inside the /tmp, like here. So we, as a volume, we use we define hello volume with based on the config map named hello, and we want to mount it with the volume mount based on the hello volume, and mount a path set to /tmp test. So that means that at the end, all key here will be mounted as a file inside /tmp test with the content of each block. So let's go, we can test it. Okay, kubectl get pod, and we can use kubectl exec-ti with alpin, so this is the name of the pod, and we need to use a direct shell like that, and I can check inside /tmp test, and inside /tmp test we have tester 1 and tester 2, and of course inside, so we can use it like that, but inside the tester 1 we have hello1, and inside tester 2 we have of course hello2. And that's it for today. Thank you for following this video, and don't hesitate to subscribe to the channel to not miss the next video, and see you for the next one. Bye bye.